Chris, very nice. Thank you so much for having me. And congratulations. It's an awesome movie. But I heard that you were sort of reluctant at first to actually write the script. Why?
Yes. Well, I had worked a little bit on the last movie, on Ghost Protocol. And I had come in very late. Somebody had already worked out the big beats of the story. And when I was working on it, I was very excited about the things I was doing, but I was constantly confronted by the sheer imagination that went into it, and said, I never would have come up with this on my own. So when I was first offered the movie, I just said, great, just let somebody else write the first draft, and I'll come in and put my spin on it. But I need somebody else to create that world.
How did you basically come around that story? Because the great thing is that it keeps you at the edge of your seat the whole time, you know, but you have to pay attention, and then sort of like the action sequences just blow you away. What was the most important thing for you? What kind of vision did you have?
It's always about character and story. It's as big as the action gets and as crazy as the stunts are, it has to come down to a human emotion. It has to come down to a connection with the character and humor. A lot of times just finding the humor in it.
So the important thing was basically making the part for Simon bigger than it used to be in the past?
It was never about making one part bigger, or it was always about finding the right place for all of the characters and the right combinations of characters. I thought it was fun to put Ving and Jeremy together and Simon and Tom together and keep the team broken apart for a piece of the movie, so that you never got tired of it. And you were always searching for the next thing to happen.
How would you describe the experience of being on set, writing the movie at the same time? I mean, it looks like it's sort of, you know, being in a toy store a lot.
It's a little bit of that, yes. It definitely, you're in the toy store. Anything that you can think up, somebody will build it for you. So that was very fun. It was also very intense because we were constantly changing the story. We were constantly changing the dialogue, rewriting scenes on the day, and I didn't have a person I could turn to and say, go write that. I had to do it. So my days I was shooting all day, Monday through Friday. On Saturday I was scouting, and on Sunday I was writing, and on Monday we were back to shoot.
Oh my goodness. Okay, before we start talking about the most obvious stunt, because it's in the trailer, the plane sequence, my favorite is the motorcycle chase in Morocco with a car. And the way that it was shot is just, I had the feeling that they were going 150 miles per hour the whole time. How did you do it, and how long did it take? Because I think it's the most amazing sequence that I've ever seen.
I want to say it took 20 some days, I think, and it was incredibly complicated just to get the shots that we did. We had to build new camera equipment and new safety gear, because we were determined right from the outset to show not only that Tom was going very fast, but that you could see the bike. Usually when you see somebody on a motorcycle, they're actually strapped to the back of a car with a pair of handlebars. And it was really, more than anything, just building the camera equipment to shoot the scene was harder than shooting the scene itself.
As the director of a movie like this, you know, and having an action star like Tom Cruise, how did you feel about him, you know, sitting on that motorcycle, being attached to the plane on the side, jumping into that water? I mean, were you so sure that he would do it great? Because on the other hand, you're in charge of the safety of all the main characters.
Yes, well, it's definitely scary, but I have a really good team, and when they tell me something is safe, I know it's okay. We never proceed unless we know something's absolutely safe. And all of that is great right up until Tom gets there and decides he's gonna push it as hard as he can, and you never know what's gonna happen.
I heard that it was sort of more like a joke that you played on him, saying this could be a great idea, you being attached to the plane.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it as a gag, and he said, yeah, I could do that, and people started making phone calls right away, and the next thing you know, there he was.
How was it done? Because I think you did it 8 times.
I think so, yes. I'm not, it's all kind of a blur. We shot it over 2 days. And I know we kept having to do it, because once you attached them to the side of the plane, you couldn't take them off. We simply didn't have time. Any single change we made to the schedule would throw us off, and we wouldn't finish the sequence. It was so tightly scheduled. So we would time to that plane and take off and land as many times as we could. Then we had to change the lens and rebalance the camera, and that took us into the next day.
What was the greatest challenge or the greatest obstacle that you had to overcome shooting that sequence?
More than anything else, time. It was incredibly tight, incredibly difficult. And then there were a million variables that we just weren't in control of. I think with all the stunts that I've looked at over the course of this franchise that he's done, that was the one stunt that had the most variables, just things beyond our control. Debris on the airfield, birds in the air, how fast the plane had to go to take off, but not too fast that it wouldn't rip Tom off the plane. It was pretty hairy.
Simon said that it was very important for Tom to keep the sort of atmosphere light on set, especially during something like Mission Impossible. But what was your feeling when he was prepping for the plane stunt?
Prepping for the plane stunt, because when we were on the ground, it wasn't real. It was all a lot of laughs. And as we got closer and closer to performing the actual stunt, it got very serious and very focused. And on the morning of, we were incredibly focused. It was like, I would imagine what it's like taking off for the moon. And it was very, very, very quiet.
And it looks like it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that Tom loves Vienna. His last premiere was here as well. But I think we have to thank your wife that the whole Vienna opera sequence is in the movie.
Yes.
What was her influence and how did you come up with that sequence?
When I was writing the script, I'd been working very hard on it. And my wife said, we're going to leave town. You need to take a break and you need to leave town. No one wanted me to leave. And she took myself and our kids to Paris, and we went to the opera in Paris, and I was really struggling with what the first action sequence was going to be. And it was there when as soon as I stopped thinking about the movie and looking at the world around me, I thought, this is a great location to have an action sequence. And I had the idea for the opera.
Okay, having the idea and actually doing it are two different kind of monsters probably.
Yes.
You could have done it in front of a green screen in the studio. Why was it important to be inside, I mean, to make those?
Well, you were never going to get the feeling of reality. You were never going to get the depth, the height, and more importantly, you were never going to get the scope and the beauty of Vienna. We had to come here.
Last but not least, there's this guy with a beard in the movie, and you made him famous back in his home country. How did that all come about, and what was important for that picture that he...
Well, apparently Tom has this friend, this bearded friend, who made a request to be a dead body in the movie. And I said, I'll do one better. Just have him send me a photograph. And I sent instructions for how to take the photograph. And he was the only person who followed the instructions to the letter, that I never had to ask for another photograph again. And so that's how you ended up in the movie.
German efficiency.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.